Well, Razorback fans, it's pretty crazy to think about that yesterday. Hunter Yurachek was in the sights of being the new AD of Auburn, but he decided to stay. We'll talk about that storyline as well as a significant injury to a player for the Razorbacks that's going to be out for the year once again. And also the Auburn Tigers, who are they actually going to hire? Well, let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of Out of Bounds. You can catch every weekday afternoon from 1 to 4 on 103.7 The Buzz and 103.7thebuzz.com. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Tuesday, as we know it's game week for Liberty. And that's a pretty exciting thing, and hopefully it ends up being good for Arkansas in that regard. But before we dive into the news, I wanted to make this little new cool addition to the podcast to get you, the listener, or you, the watcher, however you want to put it, more involved on the podcast. And just real quick, just to let everybody know, you'll see it in the ticker there in the bottom. I've set up a voicemail because I'm sure this will go really well, where if you call this phone number, you can leave a voicemail of any of your comments or your questions or anything like that. And I'll try to once a week go through a whole segment where we play a lot of them, or at least as many as we can. And we'll give some reactions to them. So it's just another way for you to get involved. But if you want to do that, it's real simple to do. You just dial 972 Hey John. I mean, that's pretty easy. 972 Hey John or 972 439 5646. You do that, you leave a voicemail, give your name, give your take, try to keep it to about 90 seconds at the most, because I know some of you like to go on rants and raves. But if you call that, we'll have some fun with that and be able to play some voicemails throughout the week, and get you to be involved a little bit more on the podcast as well. So, but just wanted to throw that out there at the start of the podcast before we dive into the good stuff. So let's dive into the good stuff. Yesterday, it was announced that not only was Auburn hiring a new athletic director officially with John Cohen, but that he fired Brian Harsin. So a lot of things going on the Auburn Plains, which we know this is not an Auburn podcast. And honestly, I wasn't really going to be bringing up anything about it, except for the fact that everyone was talking about it. And even here in Arkansas, everyone was talking about it. But the real fascination of this whole entire thing was the athletic director of Arkansas, Hunter Yurachek. According to reports, it says that Hunter Yurachek turned down an offer to take the job as the athletic director. This is according to Arkansas Business. It says they reported that Hunter Yurachek was offered $2 million per year by Auburn, and first reported that Yurachek will receive an amended contract as a result of Auburn's interest. So he's going to get a new contract with Arkansas, which we'll dive into the contract thing at first. But it's just good to know that that game on the Plains wasn't the only L that Auburn took from Arkansas this past weekend, as apparently they really wanted Hunter Yurachek, offered him $2 million, which was incredible. I mean, that's a lot of money for an athletic director, but he turned it down to stay at Arkansas. And according to the new contract with Arkansas, he'll get an increased salary to $1.5 million, as well as be eligible to receive $250,000 in deferred funds from each year by the contract. He's also eligible for additional raises consistent with increases in UA faculty and staff pay. Okay, so let's look at this in various different ways. Hunter Yurachek was offered $2 million to become the athletic director of Auburn. $2 million. But he stayed at Arkansas, where he's going to get paid $1.5 million. And I know you can throw in the bonuses in there, which I'm sure that Auburn would have had some incentives and some bonuses there too. But how telling is this? I think it says a little bit about Auburn, because I think it says that Auburn obviously is a tough gig as an athletic director, because there is a lot of pressure. And honestly, when you are getting hired as the athletic director over there right now, your first job is to fire the current coach and hire a new coach that you better get right. So not in exactly the easiest circumstances to walk into. But honestly, people can look at it the way they want. I'm going to look at it this way. It's not that Auburn necessarily is a bad athletic director gig. It's that Arkansas is one of the best athletic director jobs in the country. I have said this many times before, and people, give me a hard time about it. They laugh at me about it. They say, oh, you're just a homer. You're just looking at it through one perspective. Folks, I'm not doing any of that. I'm looking at it in reality because as an athletic director, you have a lot of different and important jobs to do. Like, I know it's really comes down to the times people pay the most attention is when it comes to hiring coaches. That's obviously a very big role with an athletic director, obviously. I think Hunter Yurachek's done a phenomenal job. I mean, hiring Eric Musselman and Sam Pittman seem to be working out really well. So he's done a good job in that. But the thing that a lot of people don't realize is raising money for the university, for the athletic department, is a huge responsibility of the athletic director. Being a part of with the Razorback Foundation in partnership with them, going out and, asking businesses and asking, alums, whoever, to be able to give to the university and to provide those things. Like, that's a huge part of the gig itself. It's also huge to continue to build the support group, to build up the fan base, to do all of these things. Like, there's just a lot going on than just hiring and firing coaches that the athletic director does. And with Arkansas, and a place like Arkansas, in this state, you don't have to compete with anybody else when it comes to boosters, when it comes to businesses, anything like that. It's like you want to be a part of the Razorbacks because it's the biggest game in town. There are no pro teams, no other major universities. This is it. So you have no competition in this state when it comes to asking for the funds and being able to provide something great and special to go along with those funds. That's number one. Number two is that you have a university with a passionate fan base for all sports. This isn't like, Georgia, where essentially it's just football all the time, and then all the other sports are just kind of there, or South Carolina or Bama. Like, not saying that they're bad in all the other sports, but I'm just saying that they put all their focus and all their eggs in one basket in one sport. With Arkansas, if you're good at it, people are going to show up. If you put a good product on the field, people are going to show up. Football, basketball, baseball, softball, track, soccer. I mean, the list goes on and on of people being supportive because of how good you are at it, which is honestly an athletic director's dream. Where it's like, hey, I know that we'll get a bunch of money from football and everything, but we got fans that'll donate to the baseball program a lot of money, build us new facilities for that. Or we got people that'll build the academic center. Jerry Jones, there's a guy that you'd like to have in your back corner. He'll build us a new academic center. Like, you have a bunch of fans that are willing to donate to a bunch of different sports and a bunch of different causes to make the athletic department great. You have phenomenal facilities. Fayetteville is an incredible place to live. I mean, it's everything that you could possibly want as an athletic director. And to me, there's a reason why Arkansas, here in just the past 50 years, has only had 3 athletic directors. And none of them, the only one that, Frank Broyles obviously retired. He was there for the majority of the time. But Jeff Long was the AD, and he was fired. So it wasn't like he left for a bigger gig. He got fired because he wasn't doing the job that they wanted him to do. And then you have Hunter Yurachek, who's doing hugely great things. Like, it is being very much publicized how incredible of a job he's doing. And people are taking notice. And that's 100% of the reason why Auburn was going after him and saying, hey, man, Hunter, if you're doing this at Arkansas, how about this? We'll pay you $2 million to come to our university because we want to mimic. We want to have what Arkansas has. We want to see Auburn do what Arkansas is doing. You've had a great blueprint there. We want that too. So come on over. We'll pay you more. You can have your guy in as a head football coach, and we'll make it happen. Hunter Yurachek said no. He said no. Not only am I going to stay at the University of Arkansas, but I'm also going to stay here for less money. You gave me $2 million. Okay, thank you. That's nice of you. But I'm staying here at Arkansas for $1.5 million. Why? Auburn is such a great football program, and it's a lot of boosters, a lot of money. Arkansas does too. Arkansas has so many great things going for it right now. It's not even funny. And honestly, the best thing an athletic director can ever be in a position to ever be in a position of this is to simply be able to kick back, relax, and let the programs all be great. And then the money just comes in. The support comes in. That's honestly the best spot an athletic director can be in. And right now, Hunter Yurachek, with football, basketball, men's and women's, baseball, so all the sports across the board, he could not be in a better position. Facility-wise, could not be in a better position. Academic-wise, could not be in a better position. Everything right now at the University of Arkansas at this exact moment is as incredible as it's ever been in the history of the athletic department. The money and the support is as high as it's ever been in the history of the athletic department. The NIL, which has played such a huge part in college athletics, at a place like Arkansas, there is very few places that can be better at it than what the University of Arkansas can provide. It is up there with the big boys when it comes to providing opportunities for student athletes. Why in the world would Hunter Yurachek want to leave that? Why in the world would he want to go across to another SEC West team, an athletic department, take over as AD, have to hire a new football coach to where if he doesn't get it right, they'll run him out of town too? Why in the world would he want to go to that? He's got it going on at Arkansas. Arkansas itself has it going on. And I continue to discuss and talk about how awesome it is to have Hunter Yurachek as the athletic director of Arkansas. I still believe he's one of the best athletic directors in the country. He has done a phenomenal job in every way, and he's done things right by the Razorback fans. I mean, I think it's awesome. I think he's always had my respect, but went up a few notches after money was thrown his way. He says, no, I'm staying here. I got it going on. It's flattering the Auburn that you would like to be as good as Arkansas and have it going on as good as Arkansas, but you don't. So I'm just going to sit here and let these programs continue to build because I know that this athletic department is one of the best ones in the country to run. Kind of makes you feel good, doesn't it? Thanks, Hunter Yurachek. Looking forward to seeing the rest of the things you're going to be doing here at the University of Arkansas to continue to make this athletic department one of, if not the best in the entire country. Our partners at Nissan have worked with us to create a new segment across the Locked On College Network called Thrilling Moments, where we highlight the most exciting play from the Arkansas Razorbacks weekend game or throughout the history of our alma mater. This week's thrilling moment from the Arkansas Razorbacks comes against Auburn this past weekend, where there was a phenomenal play with KJ Jefferson, where he was lining up to pass. They were close to the goal line and can't find anybody open, so he takes off running. And when he takes off running, there is a linebacker for Auburn that tries coming in to tackle him. He just stiffs arms him to the ground, just plants him as turf. He stiff arms him. He runs in between two guys, goes in for the end zone for a touchdown. The funniest thing about that is that KJ Jefferson even said after the game, he's like, oh, yeah, I ran the wrong play. Now, normally when people would hear that, they'd be, oh, that's horrible. That's terrible. You don't want to see that, especially from your quarterback. But I look at it in the other way of that just goes to show you how incredible KJ Jefferson is at improvisation. If something breaks down, if something goes wrong, if he has to make a play, he doesn't panic. He doesn't freak out. He doesn't lose his cool. He just goes out and makes a play. And that's when you know you have a phenomenal QB at QB1. KJ Jefferson's that dude, continues to prove it against Auburn. I can expect him to continue to prove it as the rest of the season goes on as well. This segment has been inspired by the thrilling new designs featured across Nissan's new lineup of vehicles. Pursue what thrills you in the all-new Frontier, Armada, or Pathfinder today. Available now at nissanusa.com.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so continuing on with the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, had some sad news, though, that I wanted to bring up because it was something that I know I was disappointed by, and I know a lot of Razorback fans were disappointed by as well, where yesterday Sam Pittman announced Arkansas junior running back Dominic Johnson will miss the remainder of the season with a torn ACL. He tore the same ACL that he tore last year that he had surgery on, that he's working so hard to get back on. He tore it again. Sam Pittman said it was in a non-contact injury that occurred during practice. That was the same knee that he had his offseason surgery and was recovering on. And Sam Pittman says last Monday or Tuesday, he cut on air and tore his ACL again. He says, quote, it's really unfortunate for the team, certainly for him. We found out he actually practiced the next day, and then he did not practice on Thursday, and we found out Thursday. He went and got an MRI, and we found that out. It's certainly disheartening for him because he had worked so hard to try to get back. The silver lining, though, is there is one, is that you can use this as a redshirt year for him. We kind of approached it that way. By the time he got healthy, he would be ready for fall camp, which we certainly found that it didn't help him this year missing fall camp. So we're going to go with all the positives that we certainly can out of a negative situation. So just really hate to hear that for Dominic Johnson. I was one of those people, honestly, going into this season. I thought Dominic Johnson was the best running back on the team. Just from last year and the way he ended, he was just so big. And against Mississippi State, he had that huge game and made some big plays there. Against LSU, he had the big play where he got the ball thrown to him and ran to the end zone. He's just a big, burly back and seemed to be a pretty big constant too. But, luckily for Arkansas, they've been pretty deep at that position. They haven't had to worry about, too many. The injury to Dominic Johnson ended up hurting their rushing attack because we know how incredible Rocket Sanders has been. But still, I just hate it for him. And we saw him get in a couple of times here and there. But people kept wondering, why aren't we seeing Dominic Johnson? Well, I mean, this is pre-injury. Reason being is because, as Sam Pittman said, he missed spring ball, he missed summer workouts, he missed fall camp, and he missed the beginning part of the season. And so you can't just throw in a running back that's missed essentially some of the most important parts of his development to just throw him into the mix and hope that he does well. Like you just can't do it that way. So I totally understand why Sam Pittman approached it that way and said, you know what, let's just focus on making sure that he's healthy and ready to go before we put him back out there more permanently. Well, then unfortunately this happens. So he's going to be back next year. And that's one of the things that I know we got to finish this season. We'll look at next season, see what it looks like. But your running back room is going to be great once again. You're still going to have Rocket back. Dominic Johnson will be back. AJ Green, you would think, would be back unless he, because I never want to say someone for sure will be back unless they transfer. I mean, if you're a perennial starter and you're getting a lot of snaps, you're probably not going to transfer. But so your running backs are going to be really good once again. But it's good to at least with DJ be able to use that redshirt year and to not have it impact him negatively and be able to try to be back in fall camp by next year. So, but it's just an unfortunate thing for him. Wish him nothing but the best. Hopefully he can get back healthier, and because Arkansas is going to need all the help that they can get in that running back spot, especially with this year, because AJ Green's been fine at times. Rashad Dominian's been fine at times, but it just felt like last year between, I think it's Traylon Smith, Rocket Sanders, Dominique Johnson, and AJ Green, you just had so many weapons there that nobody really knew what to think about it. But, you'll have that again next year, and I think it'll be all right. But, again, I just hate it for Dominic Johnson. I really liked him as a running back, and hopefully he can get healthy and be back and better than ever when he comes back next season. Folks, I got to tell you about sweat block. We all know that we go through it. There's embarrassing sweat that ends up happening on our arms, and it's just, you don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be that person that always has sweat going on and is drenched, and everyone's like, is it raining outside? It's like, no, that guy's just really sweaty. So it happens to us all, though, and it's really tough, and especially right now at this time of year, even though it's November, it's amazing that we're in November. At this point in time, though, it's still warm outside here in Arkansas, at least. Some of you are listening to this podcast. In fact, I saw that the third most state that listens to this podcast lives in Florida. It's like, I know that there's going to be parts of Florida that are still going to be warm. So you want to make sure that you're not having that embarrassing sweat all over your body. And that's what Sweat Block is going to do for you. Sweat Block wipes are a must-have for everyone's toiletry bag, whether it's a big presentation or for a hot date that's needed at the last minute. Take it off, and there you go. So if you or someone you love is experiencing from embarrassing sweat or odor, you got to try Sweat Block. Save 20% with promo code LOCKEDON at sweatblock.com. Again, that's 20% off. You can't get a better deal than that. 20% off. Use promo code LOCKEDON, 2 words, at sweatblock.com. You can also find them available on Amazon.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. The question becomes Auburn and who they're going to hire as head coach, which, again, I know this isn't necessarily Razorbacks related, but I think a lot of Razorback fans are talking about it. So I was like, okay, well, I'll bring it up and we'll discuss it. Here's my thing. Auburn, like, there's people saying Auburn's not as tough a job as what it means. It's not that it's not that it's so bad that nobody wants the job. It's just every single year it feels like the coach is always on the hot seat. And that's, I think, just the outsider's perspective of why people think that Auburn's such a tough job. Like, Gus Malzahn was there he was there. He got hired in 2013 and he got fired in 2020. So it's about 7-8 years, somewhere like there. He was there, but every year that it was like, all right, well, if he doesn't beat Bama, like, he would have been fired 3 times if he didn't beat Bama at the end of the year. Like, that's what was his saving grace. So I think it's just because people see the amount of pressure that they always put on coaches, and they're saying, hey, they may make a move right here and it may be over with. I think that's the frustrating thing that people see. So, but still, at the end of the day, I don't think it's that big of a deal. But still, it's just funny to think about. But either way, they're going to be looking for a new head coach. And I saw, like, betting odds come out. People saying Hugh Freeze, Lane Kiffin, Deion Sanders, Matt Rule. Here's my thing. Auburn, and maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe John Cohen, the new AD who came from Mississippi State, maybe he'll prove me wrong. But if you look at all the coaches that Auburn has hired, like, they weren't coaches that were established names like some of these are being thrown around. Like, Tommy Tuberville, when they hired him, he had 1 year at Ole Miss. Like, he wasn't established. I mean, Gene Chizik for sure wasn't established. He was 5-19 at Iowa State when they hired him. Gus Malzahn wasn't established. He had 1 year as a head coach in Arkansas State, just 1 year. Brian Harsin, I guess he was kind of established, but he was up at Boise State for the majority of his time. So Auburn has a knack for not hiring established coaches, like, because established coaches usually have said no or have moved on, whatever it may be. So here's my thing. They're either going to hire Deion Sanders. The only established coaches of those lists I think they can hire is Hugh Freeze and Deion Sanders. 2 of those guys I think would be interested for sure. I don't think Lane Kiffin's leaving. I don't think Matt Rule is going to go there either. Those would be the only established coaches I'd look at. But besides that, I would say that they would probably go some route of, like, an offensive coordinator somewhere, or defensive coordinator. Like somebody, like, I saw some Auburn fans. I had time to hire Art Briles. Well, dude, y'all are crazy if you do that. I don't think that'll happen. But anyways, Auburn's just not really had a knack for hiring established coaches. They usually hire guys that are up and coming or not very successful at the head coaching spot. I don't know. Like, I could totally see that happening. Like, I could see them, like, hiring, like, Shane Beamer, something like that, just randomly. So, but anyways, we'll see. I've been very fascinated by it. I've been very fascinated by coach. I always am by coaching searches. Just glad that it's not Arkansas. It's so nice. But Auburn, they're a solid gig. They're a solid job. I hope whatever coach they hire, though, does a horrible job, because I want Arkansas to continue to beat them. Would be nice. Appreciate everybody listening into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at BuzzJohnNabors for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.